Yeah, so match 3, and again, only a couple of years further forward, 17th of August 1991. This is our first game back in what was Division 2 then, away at Brighton. Couple of things really stick out for me in this game. Again, another glorious day. My brother and I drove down to Brighton for this one. Couple of reasons. Again, Brighton wasn't too far away from where we were living at the time. We'd moved to the sort of the southeast of England at this time, so it wasn't that far away. We'd signed John Aldridge a few weeks beforehand, so that was always going to be a real reason to go along. I remember, I don't know if how many people are old enough to remember the Today newspaper. I worked in Guildford at the time, and I remember going into work. I always picked up the Today newspaper and seeing a little side column on one of the back pages about Aldridge or Aldo issues, come and get me, plea. I was thinking, I wonder what that's about. So I had a look and reading that it was us that were in for him and hoping to bring him back at £250,000. And you think, wow, that's probably one of the best transfers ever. And yeah, so we went down to Brighton. Again, nothing I remember about the game. Brighton had this kit, so the blue and white striped shirt, but their shorts were blue and white stripes as well, which just looked really weird. They just a complete kit of blue and white stripes. We were on the side of the ground towards the bottom end of and this was Goldstone ground as well. So if I remember right, it had a bit of a slope on it. We were at the bottom of the slope, and Brighton fans giving Aldridge loads of grief because he had a couple of chances early doors which he missed. What a waste of money with the chance coming out of the Brighton end. I remember Eric Nixon saved a penalty. I think it might have been still 0-0 when he saved the penalty, and then Aldo went on to score 2 goals. And to be playing in the second division was just nuts. It was just something that when I think back to 10 years previously, I was thinking, we'd never get into the second division, and then to win away in our first home game and to have somebody like John Aldridge scoring both goals for you, it was just almost in dreamland. You couldn't really believe that it was happening to little old Tranmere, as often people refer to us as. And yeah, it was just one of those days. Again, a game that seemed to be quite a tight game. Both teams having chances. I remember Chris Malkin, I think, had a couple of chances. And yeah, just Aldridge two Aldridge style finishes, and really kind of setting us on the way to what was an all right season for our first season back in the second division. Playing considering we'd spent a lot of the time in the bottom 2 divisions. I think we did okay. We kind of held our own. I think we finished around about mid-table, maybe top of the bottom half. I can't remember. But yeah, just another very, very special day in seeing Tranmere achieve something which probably so many people really questioned whether we would ever get to that stage, or we would ever get to that point. And yeah, again, I was lucky enough to be there. And like I said, I just feel so lucky to have been through, that real successful period and seen some of these performances, some of these players, and that squad of players that kind of started to come together around, I guess, at 86, 87, seemed to be together forever, all the way through sort of into the early 90s. And players like Johnny Morrissey. Johnny Morrissey is probably one of my all-time favourite Tranmere players. Eric Nixon, I'm a huge fan of his. I was a goalkeeper, as when I play football. So loved watching Nico play. And I think, I'm sure I read somewhere on Twitter, somebody had posted about this game, and he'd replied saying, "Oh yeah, people forget I saved the penalty at 0-0 or something like that." Not that he lets people forget many things that he did.
But yeah, very unlike Eric to say something like
that. Yeah, he always likes to remind people about what a great keeper he was. But yeah, I mean, he was brilliant. I remember that Crew game. I don't think it was it 8? Did we permanently sign him? 88, 89.
88,
yeah. And he was just a colossus. He really was. He was, in stature as well as performance-wise, and He just seemed to be unbeatable, and I've seen so many great performances from him. I remember going to Southend away, might have been around the same sort of time, watching him save a penalty which had to get retaken, and then watching him save it again. Saw him save a penalty at Swansea. I've seen him save a lot of penalties, but yeah, that was another day, a beautiful day. When I think about it, actually, apart from Northampton away, all my games have been on really sunny days. But yeah, beautiful sunny day, and again, just something you never thought would happen, because it was just so not un-Tranmere like, I guess.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it completely depends on when you were brought up or when you first started going to the game. So for me, my first game was 1995, when Tranmere were a bona fide championship as it is now club. That's the level that I saw them at for the first 6 years that I was going to watch them play. So for me, that was the level that I expected them to be at. And even probably until about 2009, that was the level I expected them to be at. And then obviously the naivety of youth wears off a touch, and you realise that that's not always been the case, and they were obviously well funded to get to that position. But for anyone of your age, or anyone who maybe started going to a game, well, anytime after 2001, really, they've never seen Tranmere play in the Championship, so they think that League One or League Two is the natural level of the club. And it is funny you say you never expected to see them there, yet there they were for 10 years and more than holding their own. Just on Aldo, you mentioned reading the paper about him potentially signing. Was that a kind of pinch yourself moment? I mean, bringing him back from Spain, he'd won the League Cup with Oxford, he'd won the title with Liverpool. He was an absolute superstar goal scorer. And here he was rocking up at Tranmere, who had a few big names in their past and a few big ex-Liverpool players in their past. Ian St. John, Ron Yates, or throw Frank Worthington in there, for example. I know he's not ex-Liverpool, but when they came, they were very much over the hill, and it was just putting off retirement for one more year. Whereas with Aldo, he was 31. He still had many a year left in him. So was it kind of like when he arrived, just thought, oh my word, what have we got here?
Oh, 100%. I do remember vividly reading that article and thinking, no, this can't be true. How is this happening? Because, like you said, we've had some great names. One of my disappointments with Tranmere, I never saw Frank play for Tranmere. I think the only time I went when he was managing, he was on the bench, and I never saw him actually come on. But yeah, to see Aldridge come at a time in his career, like you said, where, and as he went on to prove, he still had a huge amount to offer. It just seemed unreal. It was almost like, well, why Tranmere? Surely there must have been other clubs who thought, hang on a minute, there's still something in this. And for £250,000, I mean, I know at the time, £250,000 was probably, relatively speaking, more than it is today, but it just seems so cheap. And for him to come and do what he ended up doing was just it was surreal. It was almost like this can't be happening. Somebody's having a joke here. I was actually chatting to somebody at work today about him, and he when I said to him, £250,000, 40 goals in his first season, he was like, oh my God, that's crazy. And I was like, yeah. And the frustrating thing is for me, being a Tranmere fan, whenever you see Aldo on the TV, it's always former Liverpool striker. But he spent longer at Tranmere than he did at any other club in his career. And you very rarely hear kind of mention of Tranmere when he's around. And I get that, Liverpool was obviously the big club that he was at. But it's frustrating because you think he delivered so much for us as a club, both on and off the pitch, as a player and as a manager. That I don't think he outside of our little world, he really gets the recognition for what he did achieve when he came back.